It's that time of the year. If you're new to this channel, I am an Apple fanboy. I have been for about, well over 10 years, and I've been using the iPhone for most of that time, apart from this year, because back in February, I switched to the S24 Ultra, and then I went from this to the Z, we do say Z in this country, Z Fold 6, and I didn't miss the iPhone as much as I thought I would. However, now we have the iPhone 16 Pro Max, I've come back to it, and I won't beat around the bush. It's been a very nice return. I'm enjoying it. I will have a proper 2-week review of this phone in about a week's time, so make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell not to miss that. But today, I thought I'd do the annual comparison that everyone waits for and everyone wants to get involved in and have their say, which is the iPhone versus the S24 Ultra, or more specifically, in this case, the iPhone 16 Pro Max versus the S24 Ultra. It's the battle of the big brands, of the big flagships, and I'm not going to go into loads of detail with this. There's not going to be a massive photo comparison or detailed battery drain test. There are much better people out there who do that sort of stuff, including Ben from Lover of Tech. Go and check him out if you want to see a proper comparison technically between these two. This video, like most of my videos, is going to be a very kind of surface level buying guide for anyone who's thinking between these two phones, although I have a sneaking suspicion about something which I'll reveal at the end of this video. In the meantime, let's have a bit of fun and work out which is the best in a number of different scenarios. Today's video is sponsored by Benks and their latest protective cases and phone grip for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. First up is the Armor Pro 600D, built with real Kevlar fiber, which provides amazing durability and protection. One major improvement this year is the new side texture and anti-slip frame. Last year, customers mentioned that the case was a bit slippery, so Benks fixed that with this new design. It's equipped with 10 end magnets, making it perfectly compatible with MagSafe accessories, ensuring a tight and secure connection every single time. You even get 6 feet drop protection thanks to those shockproof airbags. Plus, it comes with precise cutouts for all buttons and ports, and if for any reason it doesn't fit perfectly, Benks will offer a free replacement. What's really cool this year is that Benks sent me a special edition Golden Tide box, which includes both the Golden Tide Armor Air case and the Golden Tide phone grip. The Golden Tide Armor Air stands out with its float weave technology, giving the Kevlar fiber a unique multicolour design that's both vibrant and eye-catching. It's crafted to capture golden light with a smooth, burr-free surface that looks and feels premium. Like the Armor Pro, the Golden Tide Armor Air also features 600D Kevlar fiber for durability, but it's more sleek and lightweight, and ideal if you want a slimmer profile. It even has enhanced lens protection to keep your camera safe from scratches. And of course, it's MagSafe compatible as well. Next up, we have the Benks MagClap phone grip and stand, which is all about versatility and comfort. It's designed with a sleek metal ring that not only looks good, but creates a tactile, non-slip surface with a more secure grip. And if you're wondering, yes, that grip attaches very firmly with those magnets. You can easily adjust it to different angles for better comfort and usability, which means it's perfect for watching videos or taking photos. If you want to check out these new cases and phone grip, check out those links in the description. Okay, starting with pricing, and we'll put the pricing table, like a comparison chart, on the screen now so you can see the differences between these two depending on the storage option you go for. It's quite an easy thing to get your head around though, because basically the S24 Ultra is more expensive at the bottom end. So if you go for the 256 gig version, this is more expensive than this. However, when you go into the 512 and 1 terabyte realms of storage, the iPhone becomes more expensive. And part of the reason for this, as you can see on the screen, we've got these prices for the S24 Ultra in parentheses, brackets. I always get that. It is called parentheses, isn't it? In brackets, basically. Those are the prices which Samsung lists on its website against the discounted prices. Now, I don't know, by the time that you watch this video, those prices may have changed, but at the time of filming, those prices have been reduced, which means if you go for the 512 or the 1 terabyte S24 Ultra, it's cheaper than the equivalent iPhone 16 Pro Max. So when it comes to pricing, it's quite straightforward. It's the S24 Ultra that wins because, generally speaking, it's a bit cheaper than this, unless you go for the 256 gig version, but these are flagship phones and I'd always recommend going a bit higher. The 512 I think is the sweet spot really, and once you get into that realm, this is the winner in terms of pricing, but that pricing has to deliver value, which brings me on to the rest of the comparisons. Let's talk about the build quality, and Yes, they're both made from titanium, and no, I don't care who got there first and who copied who and all that stuff, because it's immensely boring. It doesn't matter. We should be getting very good build quality from both Apple and Samsung, and if that means they're both using titanium, who cares? It does mean that they're both incredibly light, both feel as light as they can given their size, and they both look very premium, which is good because they're very expensive. However, and maybe this is the Apple fanboy coming out in me, who knows, the iPhone still just has an edge with the design, and just that first unboxing experience, when you first open an iPhone and you look at the iPhone, I still get that thing, and I've opened a lot of iPhones, I still get that thing every year, right, where I just kind of, I naturally and uncontrollably kind of say, ooh, I make that noise, and I can't help it. I didn't really do that with the S24 Ultra from memory. There's just something about the design of the iPhone that is just a tiny notch above the S24 Ultra, which means for this round, the iPhone wins. Performance, and if you don't know this channel very well at the moment, hopefully you will do soon, I don't do benchmarks, I don't play games on my phones, I just do normal stuff, email, texting people, taking photos, or general everyday use. So I'm not going to sit here and do a benchmark between the two, although if you're interested, I did check out Tom's Guide's numbers that they achieved, so that they ran Geekbench 6 on these two phones, and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, again we'll put these numbers down below somewhere, the iPhone 16 Pro Max on Geekbench 6 scored 3,400 in single core, whereas the S24 Ultra scored 2,300 for single core. In multi-core, the iPhone 16 Pro Max did 8,341 and the S24 Ultra did 7,249. So on paper, the iPhone 16 Pro Max comprehensively beats the S24 Ultra. But the problem is, I haven't got a clue what those numbers mean. Absolutely no idea whatsoever, and I don't really care about them. What I care about, as mentioned, is everyday use, and they feel identical. Now, if you care about benchmarks, the iPhone 16 Pro Max would be a bit more of a tempting proposition based on what I've just told you. However, the S24 Ultra has more RAM. So this has 12 gigabytes and this has 8 gigabytes. So again, if you're the sort of person who needs, a decent amount of RAM and you do RAM intensive stuff on your phone, then the S24 Ultra might make more sense. But those are edge cases, and I still think the vast majority of people who buy these phones, even these flagship phones, are doing similar things to me, and in that respect, it's a tie. The only thing I haven't fully tested yet is the battery on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It feels pretty good. It feels better than the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is a good thing, and I never had a problem with the S24 Ultra. So for the time being, again, it's a tie. Onto the display. And this might divide the room. In fact, it definitely will. I'll say it straight away. I still prefer the S24 Ultra to any other display that I've seen this in the last 2 years, actually. And bearing in mind, I've said quite a few times recently that virtually every smartphone I test these days has a lovely display. They're fast, they're bright, they've got enough nits. That is the same thing as being bright. But you know what I'm saying? Generally speaking, you can't buy a phone with a really terrible display anymore, which is really good. But there's just something about the S24 Ultra display. I don't know what it is. I think maybe it's the brightness. So in terms of the brightness on here, this is 2,600 nits versus 2,000 nits. Now 2,000 nits, it's a lot of nits, and it's enough nits for being in bright conditions outside. You can still read this phone very easily. This has another 600 nits, which makes it better. Also, this has a pinhole camera up here. This has a dynamic island that you can't quite see with that wallpaper, but it does mean that the screen estate on the S24 Ultra isn't reduced by this little thing at the top, this little bar, which I'll come on to later. Basically, this display swallows you up more than this one. And that's despite the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a bigger display. So this has a 6.9 inch display, this has a 6.8 inch display, but because of the lack of the dynamic island, and I'm not sure what it is, even the bezels on the iPhone 16 Pro Max are smaller than the S24 Ultra bezels, but for some reason that S24 Ultra display is really all-encompassing. I absolutely love it. On to the most subjective part of any phone comparison, which is the camera system. Now, I will hand this over to you in a second because I just love to get your thoughts on this. It is, like I say, incredibly subjective. However, in terms of the specs between these two phones, it's really interesting because firstly, they both have a 5x optical zoom, which is brilliant. And that's the only thing I really care about with camera systems these days. I spend so much time taking photos with the 5X that if I get a phone that doesn't have it, like for instance, the Z Fold 6, it's a massive problem for me. So the fact they both have a 5X optical zoom is a very, very good start. Now the S24 Ultra has a much higher pixel count than the iPhone 16 Pro Max for the standard lens, standard sensor, which is 200 megapixels versus 48 megapixels. Does that matter? Not really. Basically, they both shoot very, very high resolution photos if you want them to. When it comes to video, the big difference is that the S24 Ultra shoots up to 8K, whereas this doesn't. This tops out at 4K 120 now, which is quite nice. But again, does that matter? For most people, are you going to shoot in 8K? Probably not. What matters is the quality of the video, and I still think, for me personally, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a better video shooter. You don't get that weird kind of jaggedy, that weird movement that you get on a lot of Android phones when you pan left and right. You don't get that on the iPhone. I don't know why Samsung can't match that, but for me, video-wise, this wins. But back to photos, and I'm going to show you 5 different photos taken with these cameras, and all I want to know from you in the comments is which one is better overall. And while you're looking at these photos, I will say that the winner for me on this particular round is the iPhone 16 Pro Max. I do prefer the images just slightly, and more importantly for someone like me who does a lot of video work on his phone, that video shooting is really important. So the fact that the iPhone 16 Pro Max, in my opinion, still has a better video mode than the S24 Ultra makes it the winner. Let's talk about the operating system and the ecosystem very quickly, and this is the thing that will sway it for a lot of people, to be honest. iOS I prefer over Android, just, not by a huge amount. The gap between the two is very small these days. It's just that on iOS, I've talked about this quite a lot in the past, certain apps just feel better developed. I don't know what it is, I don't know why developers seem to favour iOS seemingly over Android, but they just seem to get a bit more attention. They just feel less buggy, they look better. There's something about apps on iOS that are often better than Android, but apart from that, there's very little separating the two operating systems. They're very, very similar. The only thing that does separate them, big time, which completely contradicts what I just said, but the only big differentiating factor between these two is the ecosystem. They both have ecosystems, but in my opinion, the Apple ecosystem is unmatched. And that's in fact, it's only because it includes the Mac, and I'm a massive Mac user. If you want to use the Samsung ecosystem, you have to use Windows. No thanks. The only slightly frustrating factor with this is that if I had the choice between the Apple Watch Series 10 and the Galaxy Watch Ultra, which I know is a weird comparison, but just picking those two watches out, I would go for the Galaxy Watch Ultra. I really like that smartwatch, but it's not in the Apple ecosystem, obviously, which means it's annoying. This is a very annoying topic. I know, get involved in the comments, tell me what you think about this, but ecosystem-wise, and yes, I know this has DeX. You can use this DeX feature where if you plug this into a monitor, it essentially turns the interface of the phone into a more kind of laptop-like experience on the monitor. That isn't an ecosystem. I'm sorry, it isn't. It's not an ecosystem in the same way that the Apple ecosystem is an ecosystem. And for that reason, the iPhone 16 Pro Max wins this round. Right, let's talk about extra features, so things that these two phones have that the other one doesn't. We can do this quite quickly. The S24 Ultra has DeX, which is definitely a differentiating factor between these two phones. It also has the S Pen, which the iPhone definitely doesn't have. And yes, I've been very, very unkind about this in the past, but I can't find a use case for it. Writing like that is uncomfortable, and every time I talk about this S Pen, loads of people hit the comments and call me an idiot and give me 1,000 different things that you can do with it. None of them have caught my eye, I'm sorry. The only thing that is occasionally useful is the ability to take a photo with this. So if your phone is out of the way and you want to do a selfie or a group shot, you can take the photo with this. That's handy, but it's not a daily occurrence. Onto the iPhone, and the first thing is Dynamic Island. So if I'm playing music like that and do that, it goes into Dynamic Island, and if I press and hold, I get the controls for the music. Some app developers have made very good use of that, so Ringo always sticks in my mind for that, where you basically get your parking duration in the Dynamic Island, so it's very easy to reference and access, but that's about it. I think Dynamic Island is it's that continual thing where Apple does not want to get rid of all of the Face ID gubbins up here. For security, obviously, that makes total sense, but they absolutely do not want to go down the route of having having a fingerprint reader beneath the screen, which you do have on the S24 Ultra, which I use a lot. But Apple won't do that, which means we're stuck with this, which is, it looks very cool, it does some very cool stuff, but it eats up the screen estate, as I mentioned before, and you just kind of forget it's there. Then we have the action button, which is this button here. This replaced the mute switch from the iPhone 14. I think that was the last time we had that. And it's okay. I think most people have it set to the mute feature, to be honest. You can customize it. You can make it fire off a shortcut. You can access the camera via it, although you wouldn't want to do that now for a reason I'll explain in a second. You know, but I never press it. And then lastly, we have the camera control, which is a button, and it's a touch sensitive button. I'll save my full thoughts on this for the 2-week review, but 2 problems. One is the fact that it's just in the wrong place. It just, when I'm taking photos like that, my finger's just a bit too far over here. It doesn't feel natural. The second problem with it is that I just don't think we need it. We've become so accustomed just to going with our phones when we take photos that learning a completely different way of taking a photo with a phone it's jarring. Okay, so in terms of extra features, this is quite a tough one because I'm not that impressed by either of them, and a tie would just be a cop-out. So let's just say, I think it's this. The S24 Ultra wins in terms of extra features because, ironically, I know a lot of people like this. Artificial intelligence, AI, Apple Intelligence, whatever you want to call it, this is very straightforward. The S24 Ultra has Galaxy AI, and it's had that since last year. It's been publicly available. I don't think it's in beta. I think it's always been the public version that we've had access to, and it does all the stuff you expect. There's photo manipulation, there's help with translation, live translation, there's assistance with text, with writing, all the AI stuff we seem to be getting with every phone at the moment. That has it, and it works really well. It's very hard to pull it apart. Galaxy AI, which is hard to say, is very good. This is sold on the basis of having Apple Intelligence, which at the moment, unless you're using the beta of iOS 18, doesn't exist. Despite it being plastered across the website, even when you buy the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it says Apple Intelligence above it. You get the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it's not there. In the UK, we get it in December in beta form, and for that reason, I can't comment on it. I've never used it. I have no idea what it's like. So when it comes to AI, this wins. It's conclusion time, and on paper, the S24 Ultra wins because of that display and the fact that the AI stuff exists and works, and the pricing. You get more value for money with this. So if you're not tied to either the Apple ecosystem or Android, you just want a very, very good smartphone that is of flagship quality, get that. For me, the iPhone 16 Pro Max wins just because I've come back to the iPhone after quite an extended absence, and I realised that I've missed it more than I thought I did. It just feels right for me. And this comes back to what I hinted at the start of this video. I think before you hit play on this video, you knew which one you preferred. When you become an Apple person or a Samsung person, it becomes very difficult to be swayed the other way, and I think most people watch these videos just because they enjoy seeing the battle. They enjoy seeing what someone like me and the people in the comments are saying about these two phones. So once again, guys, I hand it over to you. Which one do you prefer and why? And if you've still got some time and you want to see an Apple fanboy waffle on about the new AirPods Max, keep watching for a link.